Now joined by Congressman John YARMUTH, the one Democrat that's in federal office from Kentucky. Congressman, thank you very much.
Matt, good to be with you.
We're here in part on Whiskey Row. The big issue coming up are the tariffs that the president has instituted that a lot of people think will have a negative effect on some parts of Kentucky. The bourbon industry is one. It has helped, I guess, the aluminum industry, which is part of Kentucky, but overall, do you think the tariffs are a bad idea?
Well, it has helped a few manufacturers in the aluminum and steel business, but also it's penalized anybody who's using steel and aluminum. And I've had a number of companies based in Kentucky who said prices have gone up 30–40% on steel this year. They were trying to get a lot of their products sold this early so that they wouldn't be as affected by the tariffs, but no, they're companies like Ford, companies like, we've got a truck lift manufacturer based in Danville that's really suffering. So, yeah, we've got there's a pretty heavy impact of these.
Do you think, like, take the bourbon industry? I mean, I hear people say it's going to have a negative impact. Kind of explain to people why that would be the case.
Well, most of what I'm hearing from the distillers is that it probably is not going to affect domestic production as much, but it's going to impede their ability to expand. Most of the growth in the bourbon industry right now is anticipated overseas. I had one distiller say their product was going to cost 50% more at a point of purchase overseas, and that would really limit their ability to expand.
Well, let me ask you about with President Trump. There's a lot of people I know that watch this show. I hear about it all over the state. There's so much news that comes out on the Russia thing and the investigation that some people get kind of overwhelmed, and they sort of say, what is the big picture? In your mind, on the investigation with Russia, where are we? And if you don't mind me asking, how does this end?
Well, it's probably going to end with the special counsel, Robert Mueller, coming out with a report that's going to show that there was definitely collusion between the Russian government and the Trump campaign. Whether it personally reaches President Trump is another question, but there's already significant, substantial evidence of collusion. So the question is whether voters are going to take Republicans and President Trump to task for it.
Well, let me ask you that. I wonder this. Is the only way to ultimately take him to task voting? I mean, this entire investigation, at the end of the day, is it just going to come down to whether or not people care?
Yeah, I think it will. And I think the only way realistically is voting. But, you know, the biggest problem with the Russian thing is that they haven't stopped doing what they have done, that our elections are in jeopardy this year and in 2020. And this administration has, as of yet, not done anything to try and combat that.
Let's talk a little bit about something that we talked about in the last segment in Louisville, the ICE protest. You hear all over the country there have been some candidates who've won primaries saying they believe ICE should be abolished. Do you agree with that? And if not, what is the best situation? What do you think about the protest occurring?
No, well, you know, I'm fine with anybody protesting, and I think I share their contempt for a lot of the tactics that ICE has been using. Abolishing ICE is not going to accomplish anything. There's always going to be a need for an enforcement mechanism of our immigration laws. What we haven't had is oversight, accountability, and we have policies that encourage what they're doing. And you know, I think everybody just is heartbroken over the ripping families apart. We've been seeing it for years here, and there's a lack of reasonableness and humanity in these immigration policies and the way they're enforced. I called the director in about 2 years ago. I confronted him with some evidence that we had about practices they were using. He denied them all, even though we had evidence of that.
But on that point, you said 2 years ago. I mean, I do think it's important to note some of this stuff's been going on way before Donald Trump, correct?
Exactly right. It's only been highlighted because of this terrible situation at the border with young children being ripped away from their families. But there have been families being separated for a long time now. And again, we should have a change in policies, a change in oversight, much more scrutiny, and a change in transparency, because obviously they don't tell us what they're doing.
Senator Mitch McConnell is in town this week. He's actually doing a press conference today. And there's been a lot of talk about when he comes home to Louisville, protesters who show up where he's eating dinner, et cetera. I personally think that's a huge mistake, and actually let the guy eat. What do you think?
Well, obviously, you know, I'm subject to the same type of thing. And, you know, to me, the answer is And I would never interrupt somebody's meal to protest, because you're actually doing, you're inconveniencing the other customers who are in the establishment as well. I don't have as much trouble when they're on a public street and you can harass them a little bit. But if your normal behavior is to engage with your constituents and to be willing to discuss issues openly and honestly, then you're much less likely to get that. And unfortunately, Mitch hasn't been willing to do that.
Last question. The Morning Consult had a poll about the popularity of Matt Bevin, Mitch McConnell, and Rand Paul. All were more unpopular than popular in Kentucky. Right. Yet this is a Republican state. Do you think that this is turning at all? And then more specifically, Amy McGrath's race coming up in Lexington in our viewing area. How do you think that goes?
Well, I think Amy's going to win. All the polling, actually, I think Andy Barr's polling also shows him behind in the race. She's one of these people who's caught fire at the right time. And politics is always about timing. So I think she's going to win. I think we have a very good chance, we Democrats, of taking back the Kentucky House. We have amazing candidates who are working hard and raising money. So I think, we're not ready to be a blue state. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think we're making inroads.